Jasmine Carter was not your ordinary person. She had grown up in a small town where opportunities were scarce, and dreams often stayed just that, dreams. But Jasmine wasn't one to let life's challenges hold her back. From the time she was young, she knew she wanted more than what her surroundings offered. Her family struggled to make ends meet, but they always encouraged her to dream big. They taught her the value of hard work, resilience, and determination. And so, Jasmine carried those lessons with her everywhere she went. Her journey began when she took on odd jobs after school to help her family. Whether it was babysitting, cleaning houses, or working at a local diner, Jasmine did it all. She saved every penny she earned, knowing deep down that someday she would use it to build something extraordinary. During these early years, Jasmine discovered her love for hospitality. She noticed how some businesses treated their customers like royalty, while others barely acknowledged them. That observation planted a seed in her mind. If she ever owned a business, she would ensure that everyone who walked through its doors felt valued and respected. After high school, Jasmine worked tirelessly to put herself through college. She studied business management and hospitality, determined to learn everything she could about running a successful enterprise. Nights were spent poring over textbooks, while days were filled with internships at hotels and restaurants. It wasn't easy balancing work, studies, and personal life, but Jasmine refused to give up. Her professors and mentors saw potential in her, a spark that set her apart from others. They encouraged her to think bigger, dream bolder, and aim higher. By the time she graduated, Jasmine had already started laying the foundation for her future empire. She began by managing small properties, learning the ins and outs of the industry. She paid close attention to details, understanding that success came from delivering exceptional service consistently. Over time, her reputation grew. People began to notice the changes she implemented wherever she worked: improved customer satisfaction, happier employees, and increased profits. It wasn't long before investors took notice too. With the support of a few key backers, Jasmine launched her first hotel. It wasn't grand or luxurious, it was modest and functional, but it was hers. She poured her heart and soul into making it a place where guests felt welcome and cared for. Every decision, no matter how small, reflected her values. From hiring diverse staff members to ensuring accessibility for all guests, Jasmine made inclusivity a cornerstone of her brand. Word spread quickly about this new hotel run by a young, ambitious woman who clearly cared deeply about her work. Before long, bookings surged, and Jasmine found herself expanding her operations. As her chain of hotels grew, so did her influence. Jasmine became a trailblazer in an industry dominated by men. She shattered stereotypes and defied expectations, proving that leadership knows no gender or background. Her company, Carter Hospitality, soon became synonymous with excellence. Each property under her banner stood out not only for its luxurious amenities, but also for its commitment to treating every guest with dignity and respect. Employees admired her vision and dedication, often referring to her as a role model both professionally and personally. Despite her growing success, Jasmine remained grounded. She never forgot where she came from or the struggles that shaped her. Whenever she faced setbacks, and there were many, she reminded herself of the little girl who once dreamed of building something great. Those memories fueled her drive to keep pushing forward, even when the odds seemed stacked against her. One of Jasmine's proudest achievements was the creation of Legacy Suites, a 5-star hotel designed to be the pinnacle of luxury and innovation. It represented everything she had worked toward: elegance, sophistication, and above all, inclusivity. The hotel featured state-of-the-art technology, breathtaking architecture, and personalized services tailored to meet the needs of discerning travelers. But what truly set Legacy Suites apart was its culture, a reflection of Jasmine's belief that everyone deserves to feel seen, heard, and valued. On the eve of Legacy Suites' grand opening, Jasmine returned home after months of traveling around the world to finalize deals and oversee preparations. Exhausted yet exhilarated, she couldn't wait to see the culmination of her efforts. As she stepped off the plane, she felt a mix of excitement and nostalgia. This hotel wasn't just another project. It was her legacy, a testament to her journey. From a small-town girl with big dreams to a powerhouse CEO, reshaping the hospitality landscape. Little did Jasmine know, however, that her arrival at Legacy Suites would mark the beginning of a chapter unlike any other. What awaited her inside those gleaming doors would test her resolve, challenge her principles, and ultimately redefine what it meant to lead with courage and integrity. For now, though, Jasmine simply looked forward to checking into her own hotel, ready to celebrate the fruits of her labor. The sun had just begun to set as Jasmine pulled up to Legacy Suites in her sleek black car. The hotel stood tall and proud, its glass facade reflecting the golden hues of twilight. It was everything she had envisioned, a beacon of luxury, innovation, and inclusivity. As she stepped out of the vehicle, Jasmine felt a wave of pride wash over her. This wasn't just another building. It was her masterpiece, a symbol of all she had achieved against the odds. She straightened her blazer, smoothed her hair, and walked toward the entrance with confidence. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity. Guests milled about, admiring the elegant decor. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. Plush sofas adorned with tasteful throw pillows invited relaxation, and fresh flowers filled the air with a subtle fragrance. Employees moved efficiently, greeting visitors with warm smiles and attentive gestures. Everything seemed perfect, exactly as Jasmine had imagined it would be. Yet as she approached the front desk, something shifted in the atmosphere. The receptionist, a young woman with a clipboard in hand, glanced up briefly before returning to her screen. Her expression remained neutral, almost dismissive. "Can I help you?" she asked without looking directly at Jasmine. Jasmine smiled politely. "Yes, I'd like to check in, please." The receptionist tapped on her keyboard for a moment, then frowned slightly. "Do you have a reservation?" For a second, Jasmine thought she must have misheard. "A reservation? No, I don't need one. I'm Jasmine Carter, the CEO of this hotel." The words hung in the air, but the receptionist didn't react the way Jasmine expected. Instead, her brow furrowed further, and she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said coolly, "but we can't give rooms to anyone who doesn't have a confirmed booking. That's our policy." Jasmine blinked, taken aback. Surely this was some kind of misunderstanding. She reached into her purse and pulled out her identification card, sliding it across the counter. "Here's my ID," she said calmly. "And if you're unsure, feel free to call security or management. They'll confirm who I am." But instead of checking the ID, the receptionist barely glanced at it. She pushed it back toward Jasmine with a flick of her wrist. "Ma'am, I've already explained the policy. If you don't have a reservation, I can't assist you." By now, a small crowd had gathered nearby. Some guests paused mid-conversation to watch the exchange, while others pretended not to notice. A few employees lingered awkwardly, unsure whether to intervene. Jasmine could feel their eyes on her, but she kept her composure. She spoke slowly, enunciating each word clearly. "Let me reiterate. I am Jasmine Carter. This is my hotel. You work for me. Now, I'd appreciate it if you checked me in." If anything. The receptionist's demeanor grew colder. She tilted her head slightly, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Look, ma'am, I don't know who you are, but making false claims isn't going to get you a room here. Either produce a valid reservation or leave." At that moment, Jasmine realized this wasn't simply a case of poor customer service. It was something deeper, uglier. The receptionist hadn't once looked her in the eye, hadn't bothered to verify her identity, and had dismissed her outright despite clear evidence. It wasn't hard to see why. Jasmine was a black woman, dressed impeccably but perhaps not, fitting the image someone like the receptionist might associate with power and authority. And in that instant, the truth hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about policies or reservations. It was about prejudice. Her heart pounded, and heat rose to her cheeks. For years, she had fought tooth and nail to break barriers in an industry that rarely welcomed people like her. She had faced countless obstacles, endured whispered insults, and worked twice as hard to prove herself. Yet here she was, standing in her own hotel, being treated as though she didn't belong. Despite the anger bubbling inside her, Jasmine refused to let it show. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Then she turned to the growing audience around her. "Does anyone else here recognize me?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Several people nodded hesitantly. One guest even muttered, "Yeah, that's definitely her. I saw her on TV last week." Still, the receptionist remained unmoved. "Even if that's true," she said stiffly, "you still need a reservation." Jasmine stared at her for a long moment, weighing her options. Part of her wanted to demand answers, to call out the blatant discrimination right then and there. But she knew better. Losing her temper wouldn't solve anything, it would only escalate the situation. Instead, she decided to handle things strategically. "Fine," she said finally, slipping her ID back into her purse. "Since you seem so committed to following policy, perhaps you'd like to explain this incident to your manager. Or, better yet, to the board of directors. Let's see how they feel about turning away the CEO of their own company." With that, Jasmine stepped back from the counter, her posture radiating quiet authority. She didn't raise her voice or make a scene, but the weight of her words was undeniable. Nearby, an older employee, a concierge Jasmine recognized from earlier meetings, hurried forward, visibly flustered. "Ms. Carter," he exclaimed, "please forgive this misunderstanding. Allow me to escort you to your suite personally." Jasmine gave him a curt nod, though her gaze never left the receptionist. "Thank you," she said softly. "But don't worry, this isn't over." As she followed the concierge toward the elevators, Jasmine couldn't shake the sting of what had just happened. The humiliation of being denied entry to her own property. The audacity of someone dismissing her based on preconceived notions. But more than anything, she felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever been made to feel invisible because of their race, gender, or background. In that elevator ride, Jasmine resolved to take action, not just for herself but for everyone watching. Because if someone like her, someone who had built an empire from nothing, could be treated this way, then no one was truly safe from such biases. And she wasn't going to let it slide. As the elevator doors slid open on the top floor, Jasmine stepped out into the serene hallway of the executive suites. The concierge, still apologizing profusely, led her to the penthouse, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. It was designed as her personal quarters, a place where she could unwind after long days or entertain guests during high-profile events. But tonight, the luxurious surroundings did little to ease the storm brewing inside her. Jasmine dismissed the concierge with a polite nod, thanking him for his assistance but making it clear she needed some time alone. As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, she exhaled sharply, letting the weight of what had just happened sink in. She stood by the window, staring out at the glittering lights below, her mind racing. How could this have happened? In her own hotel? The very establishment she had poured her heart and soul into creating? But Jasmine wasn't one to dwell on self-pity. Anger, frustration, even hurt. These emotions were valid, but they wouldn't solve anything. What mattered now was action. She had spent years building Carter Hospitality not just as a business empire, but as a platform to challenge stereotypes and create opportunities for marginalized communities. Tonight's incident proved that no matter how far she rose, there would always be people trying to pull her down, and she refused to let them win. With purposeful strides, Jasmine moved to the desk in the corner of the suite. She opened her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she drafted an email to her legal team. "We need to investigate this immediately," she wrote. "I want a full review of the policies and practices at Legacy Suites. This isn't just about one employee. It's about identifying systemic issues that allowed such blatant discrimination to occur." She hit send, knowing her lawyers would jump into action first thing in the morning. Next, she picked up her phone and dialed her head of public relations, Sarah. The call connected almost instantly. "Sarah, it's me," Jasmine said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Something happened tonight when I arrived at Legacy Suites. I'll brief you fully tomorrow, but for now, I need you to prepare a statement. Keep it concise but powerful. Acknowledge the situation without going into specifics yet. We don't want to escalate prematurely, but make it clear that we're addressing this head-on. Sarah, sensing the gravity of the moment, responded quickly. Understood, Jasmine. Do you want us to release it tonight, or should we wait until morning? Let's wait until morning, Jasmine replied. Timing is everything. We'll drop it right before the news cycle picks up, ensuring maximum impact. And Sarah? She paused, her tone softening slightly. Thank you. I know I can count on you. After hanging up, Jasmine leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Her next move was critical. She scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for, Marcus Chen, the chairman of the board of directors at Carter Hospitality. Marcus had been instrumental in helping her secure funding for Legacy Suites, and while he wasn't directly involved in day-to-day operations, his influence carried significant weight. When Marcus answered, his voice was warm and familiar. Jasmine, I was actually going to call you tomorrow to congratulate you on the grand opening. How's everything going? Jasmine hesitated for a fraction of a second. Should she tell him everything? Yes, she decided. Transparency was key. Marcus, I appreciate the sentiment, but something came up tonight that I need to discuss with you. When I arrived at Legacy Suites, I was denied entry by one of my own employees. They refused to believe I was the CEO and insisted I needed a reservation to check in. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Marcus spoke, his tone laced with disbelief. What? That's unacceptable. Are you serious? I wish I weren't, Jasmine replied, her voice firm. This isn't just a customer service issue. It's a reflection of deeper problems within our organization. I've already contacted my legal team and PR department. I wanted to inform you personally because I know how much you've invested in this project. I need your support to address this swiftly and decisively. Marcus didn't hesitate. Of course, Jasmine, you have my full backing. Whatever resources you need, consider them yours. Let's meet tomorrow morning to discuss next steps. Together we'll ensure this never happens again. Hanging up, Jasmine felt a flicker of relief. Having Marcus on her side was crucial, and his immediate response reassured her that she wasn't alone in this fight. Still, she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Change often came with resistance, and she was prepared for pushback from employees, investors, and perhaps even the media. But she also knew that moments like this defined true leadership. It wasn't about avoiding conflict, it was about confronting it with courage and integrity. Before calling it a night, Jasmine took one final step. She opened her social media accounts and typed out a brief message. Sometimes life reminds us why the work we do matters. Tomorrow I'll share more about an experience I had tonight, one that has reinforced my commitment to creating spaces where everyone feels valued and respected. For now, remember this: progress requires accountability. Inclusion matters. She posted the tweet, then set her phone aside. Within minutes, notifications began pouring in, likes, retweets, comments from followers expressing curiosity and concern. Though vague, her message hinted at something significant, sparking speculation among her audience. By morning, it would dominate conversations online, setting the stage for the statement her PR team planned to release. As Jasmine climbed into bed, exhaustion finally catching up to her, she allowed herself a small smile. The events of the evening had shaken her, yes, but they had also reignited her resolve. Legacy Suites wasn't just a hotel, it was a symbol of everything she stood for. And if anyone doubted her ability to lead, she would prove them wrong. Not through anger or retaliation, but through action. The next morning, Jasmine woke up early, the first light of dawn streaming through the windows of her penthouse suite. She sat on the edge of her bed for a moment, collecting her thoughts and mentally preparing for the day ahead. Yesterday's events still lingered in her mind, but she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Today wasn't about dwelling on what had gone wrong. It was about taking control and turning this painful experience into an opportunity for meaningful change. After showering and dressing in one of her signature sharp suits, tailored to perfection, exuding both professionalism and confidence, Jasmine headed to the hotel's executive boardroom. The space was sleek and modern, with glass walls that offered panoramic views of the city. By the time she arrived, Marcus Chen, the chairman of the board, was already seated at the head of the table, along with several other key members of Carter Hospitality's leadership team. They greeted her warmly, though their expressions betrayed a mix of concern and curiosity. "Good morning, everyone," Jasmine began, taking her seat. Her voice was calm but authoritative, commanding attention without raising its volume. "I'm sure you're all wondering why I called this meeting. Last night, when I arrived at Legacy Suites, I was denied entry by one of my own employees. Despite presenting my ID and explaining who I am, they refused to check me in because I didn't have a reservation." A murmur rippled through the room. Some exchanged shocked glances, while others looked visibly uncomfortable. Jasmine held up a hand to silence them before continuing. "This incident wasn't just a failure of customer service, it exposed systemic issues within our organization. Discrimination doesn't happen in a vacuum. It thrives when policies are vague, training is inadequate, and accountability is lacking. As leaders, it's our responsibility to address these gaps, not only for the sake of our guests, but for every employee who represents this brand." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she laid out her plan. First, she announced that the receptionist and manager involved in the incident would be placed on immediate leave, pending a thorough investigation. Second, she instructed the legal team to review all company policies related to guest interactions, ensuring they were clear, fair, and free of bias. Third, she proposed mandatory diversity and inclusion training for every staff member across all properties under Carter Hospitality. To drive her point home, Jasmine shared a personal story. "When I started this company, people doubted me, not just because I was young or inexperienced, but because of how I look and where I come from. I've faced prejudice my entire life, and while I've learned to rise above it, no one should have to endure that kind of treatment. Especially not in a place that claims to value inclusivity and respect." Her vulnerability struck a chord with everyone in the room. Even those who initially seemed skeptical now nodded in agreement. Marcus broke the silence. "Jasmine, you have our full support. Whatever resources you need to implement these changes, consider them approved. Let's make sure this never happens again. Not here, not anywhere." With the internal groundwork laid, Jasmine turned her focus outward. At precisely 9 a.m., her PR team released the official statement she had prepared the night before. The message was concise yet powerful. "Last evening, I experienced firsthand the discrimination that too many individuals face daily. As the CEO of Legacy Suites, I was denied entry to my own property due to implicit biases and flawed policies. While this incident was deeply disappointing, it has reinforced my commitment to creating spaces where everyone feels seen, valued, and respected. Over the coming weeks, we will conduct a comprehensive review of our practices and implement measures to ensure accountability and inclusivity. Change begins with honesty, and today, we take the first step toward a better future." Within minutes, the statement went viral. Social media platforms erupted with reactions. Supporters praised Jasmine for addressing the issue so openly, while critics questioned whether the incident was exaggerated or staged. Regardless of the opinions swirling online, one thing was undeniable. The world was watching. News outlets picked up the story almost immediately. Headlines like, "Black CEO denied entry to her own hotel" dominated morning broadcasts, sparking heated discussions about racism and privilege in corporate America. Talk show hosts invited experts to weigh in, dissecting the implications of such behavior in a supposedly progressive industry. Meanwhile, influencers and activists used their platforms to amplify Jasmine's message, urging followers to hold businesses accountable for discriminatory practices. Guests booked at Legacy Suites began canceling their reservations en masse. High-profile clients, one of whom happened to be a major celebrity slated to host an event at the hotel, publicly denounced the establishment, vowing never to return until substantial changes were made. Investors grew uneasy, worried about the potential financial fallout. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the backlash might overshadow the progress Jasmine hoped to achieve. But Jasmine remained unfazed. She understood that discomfort often preceded transformation, and she welcomed the scrutiny if it meant shining a light on deeper issues. That afternoon, she held a press conference outside Legacy Suites. Dressed impeccably, and flanked by Marcus and other trusted advisors, she addressed the gathered reporters with poise and conviction. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady and resolute. "Yesterday, I walked into this hotel expecting to celebrate a milestone, the culmination of years of hard work and perseverance. Instead, I encountered prejudice disguised as policy. What happened to me isn't unique. Countless individuals, especially women of color, face similar indignities every single day. But because of my position, I have the privilege of speaking out. And speak out I will." She went on to outline the steps Carter Hospitality was taking to rectify the situation. From firing the employees involved to implementing sweeping reforms, she left no detail unaddressed. She also announced the launch of a new initiative called Inclusive Hospitality, aimed at promoting diversity and equity across the industry. Through partnerships with advocacy groups, educational workshops, and mentorship programs, Jasmine intended to use her platform to drive lasting change. By the end of the press conference, the tide had begun to shift. Public opinion swung in Jasmine's favor as people recognized her sincerity and determination. Guests who had canceled their stays reconsidered, impressed by her transparency and willingness to confront difficult truths. Investors regained confidence, reassured by her decisive leadership. Even some of her harshest critics softened their stance, acknowledging that Jasmine wasn't just reacting to a crisis. She was seizing the moment to lead by example. As the day drew to a close, Jasmine returned to her suite, exhausted but hopeful. She scrolled through social media, reading messages of encouragement from strangers around the globe. Many shared their own stories of discrimination, thanking her for giving them a voice. Others pledged to support Carter Hospitality, vowing to book rooms at Legacy Suites once the changes were implemented. One comment stood out among the rest. "You didn't just handle this situation with grace, you turned it into a movement. Thank you for reminding us what real leadership looks like." Jasmine smiled faintly, saving the message to revisit later. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to fight, but for now she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew she was on the right path. Legacy Suites wasn't just a hotel anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, justice, and hope. And Jasmine, Carter? She was proving once again that true leaders don't shy away from adversity. They embrace it and emerge stronger than ever. The days following the incident at Legacy Suites were a whirlwind of activity. Jasmine Carter had set ambitious goals for herself and her company, and she wasted no time putting her plans into motion. Every morning she arrived at the hotel before sunrise, determined to lead by example. Her presence alone sent a powerful message to employees and guests alike. This wasn't just a fleeting response to a crisis. It was a fundamental shift in how Carter Hospitality operated. First on her agenda was addressing the individuals directly responsible for the discriminatory behavior. After conducting thorough interviews with the receptionist, the manager on duty, and other staff members who had witnessed the incident, Jasmine made the difficult decision to terminate their employment. It wasn't an easy choice. She understood that people could learn from their mistakes, but she believed accountability was essential to fostering real change. In a private meeting with each employee, she explained her reasoning with empathy but firmness. "You represent this brand," she told them. "Your actions reflect not only on yourselves but on everyone who works here. Discrimination has no place in our organization, and we cannot move forward until those responsible are held accountable." While these firings sparked some tension, among the remaining staff they also signaled to the team that Jasmine meant business. She followed up by hosting town hall meetings where employees could voice their concerns, ask questions, and share suggestions. These sessions weren't just about damage control. They were opportunities to rebuild trust and foster open communication. Jasmine listened intently, taking notes and acknowledging the valid points raised by her team. One housekeeping supervisor stood up during one of these meetings and said, "Ms. Carter, I've worked here since day one and I've always been proud to wear this uniform, but last night shook me. If something like that can happen to you, what does it say about the rest of us? How do we know we're safe?" Her words resonated deeply with others in the room. Jasmine nodded thoughtfully before responding. "You're absolutely right. What happened to me wasn't isolated. It's a symptom of larger issues within our culture. That's why we're implementing mandatory diversity and inclusion training for every employee, starting next week. We're also bringing in independent auditors to evaluate our hiring practices, promotions, and daily operations. My promise to you is this: if there's bias or inequality anywhere in this company, we will root it out." Her commitment earned her respect, even from those initially skeptical of her approach. Employees began to see Jasmine not as a distant CEO, but as someone willing to roll up her sleeves and work alongside them to create a better environment. Morale slowly improved as the team rallied around the shared goal of making Legacy Suites a model of inclusivity. Meanwhile, Jasmine turned her attention outward, using her platform to advocate for broader change within the hospitality industry. She partnered with advocacy groups and nonprofits dedicated to combating discrimination and promoting equity. Together, they launched Inclusive Hospitality, an initiative aimed at educating businesses about the importance of representation and accountability. The program included workshops, seminars, and online resources designed to help companies identify and address biases in their own organizations. Jasmine also invited prominent figures from various industries to speak at Legacy Suites about their experiences with discrimination. One event featured a panel discussion with successful women of color who shared stories of overcoming adversity in male-dominated fields. Another brought together LGBTQ+ activists to talk about creating safe spaces for marginalized communities. These events drew large crowds, generating buzz both locally and nationally. Guests left inspired, vowing to support businesses that prioritized inclusivity. To further solidify her efforts, Jasmine introduced new policies at Legacy Suites designed to prevent similar incidents in the future. For example, all front desk staff were required to verify guest identities using multiple methods, not just reservations, to avoid assumptions based on appearance. A hotline was established where employees could report discriminatory behavior anonymously, ensuring that no one felt silenced or ignored. Regular feedback surveys allowed guests to rate their experiences, providing valuable insights into areas needing improvement. As word spread about the changes happening at Legacy Suites, public perception began to shift. Once wary travelers started returning, curious to see firsthand how the hotel had transformed. Many were pleasantly surprised by the warm welcome they received and the visible emphasis on inclusivity. From the diverse artwork adorning the walls to the multilingual staff ready to assist guests, every detail reflected Jasmine's vision of a truly welcoming space. But perhaps the most impactful aspect of Jasmine's campaign was her decision to host conferences and workshops focused on combating discrimination. Legacy Suites became a hub for discussions about race, gender, and equality, attracting leaders from across the globe. Attendees praised the hotel not just for its luxurious amenities, but for its role in advancing social progress. Journalists wrote glowing articles about the property's cultural significance, cementing its status as more than just a place to stay. It was a symbol of hope and resilience. Despite the challenges she faced, Jasmine remained steadfast in her mission. She knew that true change didn't happen overnight, and there would inevitably be setbacks along the way. Some critics accused her of being overly idealistic, while others questioned whether her initiatives would have any lasting impact. But Jasmine refused to let negativity derail her progress. Instead, she used it as fuel to push harder, work smarter, and dream bigger. By the end of the month, the results spoke for themselves. Bookings at Legacy Suites had rebounded, surpassing Pre-incident levels. Guest satisfaction scores soared, with many praising the hotel's commitment to inclusivity. Investors expressed renewed confidence in Carter Hospitality, impressed by Jasmine's ability to turn a crisis into an opportunity for growth. Even former detractors admitted that her leadership had set a new standard for excellence in the industry. Late one evening, as Jasmine sat in her office reviewing reports and planning future initiatives, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The past few weeks had been grueling, testing her resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. Yet through it all, she had stayed true to her values, proving that courage and compassion could coexist. Legacy Suites wasn't just surviving. It was thriving, thanks to the hard work of everyone involved. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, gazing out at the city lights twinkling below. She thought about the little girl she once was, the one who dreamed of building something great despite the odds stacked against her. That girl would be proud of what she had accomplished. But more importantly, she would recognize that the journey wasn't over yet. There was still so much work to be done, so many lives to touch, so many barriers to break. With a deep breath, Jasmine smiled softly. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new victories, and new lessons, and she would face them all with the same determination that had carried her this far. Because for Jasmine Carter, success wasn't measured by accolades or profits. It was defined by the positive impact she left on the world. Months had passed since the incident at Legacy Suites, and the hotel, and Jasmine Carter herself, had undergone a remarkable transformation. What began as a humiliating and painful experience had evolved into a powerful movement that resonated far beyond the walls of the property. Legacy Suites was no longer just a luxury hotel. It had become a beacon of progress, inclusivity, and resilience. And Jasmine, through her unwavering determination and leadership, had emerged as one of the most respected figures in both the hospitality industry and the broader fight for equality. The changes Jasmine implemented were not superficial or temporary fixes. They were deeply rooted in the culture of Carter Hospitality. The diversity training program she introduced had proven to be transformative, not only for employees, but also for guests who witnessed the shift firsthand. Staff members now interacted with visitors in ways that were thoughtful, respectful, and genuine. Guests from all walks of life reported feeling seen and valued, whether they were checking in for a weekend getaway or attending a high-profile conference. The atmosphere at Legacy Suites radiated warmth and inclusion, setting a new standard for excellence in customer service. Jasmine's efforts extended beyond the hotel itself. Her inclusive hospitality initiative had gained momentum, attracting attention from businesses around the world. Hotels, restaurants, and even airlines began reaching out to learn how they could adopt similar practices within their own organizations. Workshops hosted by Carter Hospitality became highly sought-after events, drawing participants eager to create safer, more equitable environments for their customers and employees. Jasmine traveled extensively, speaking at conferences and sharing her story with audiences who hung on her every word. Her message was simple yet profound. True success is measured not by profits, but by the positive impact you leave on others. One of the most significant milestones came when Jasmine collaborated with a major publishing house to write a memoir titled From Denial to Destiny. In its pages, she recounted her journey, from growing up in a small town with limited resources to building an empire that challenged societal norms. She wrote candidly about the struggles she faced along the way, including the discrimination and prejudice that often threatened to derail her dreams. But she also celebrated the triumphs, highlighting moments where perseverance and faith carried her through. The book quickly climbed bestseller lists, inspiring readers across generations to confront injustice head-on and turn adversity into opportunity. As From Denial to Destiny gained popularity, so did Jasmine's influence. She was invited to speak at prestigious institutions like Harvard Business School and TED Talks, where she delivered speeches that left audiences moved and motivated. During one particularly memorable TED Talk, she stood on stage wearing a bold red suit, her presence commanding, yet approachable. "We live in a world where people are judged before they're understood," she said, her voice steady and impassioned. "But I believe we have the power to change that narrative. By choosing empathy over assumption, action over indifference, and courage over fear, we can build a future where everyone has a seat at the table." Her words earned a standing ovation, and videos of the talk went viral, amassing millions of views online. People from all corners of the globe reached out to share how her story had touched them. Some wrote letters thanking her for giving them hope during difficult times. Others pledged to support Carter Hospitality, vowing to book stays at Legacy Suites or recommend the brand to friends and family. A young woman studying hospitality management sent Jasmine a heartfelt email saying, "You've inspired me to pursue my dreams, even though the odds feel stacked against me. Thank you for showing me what's possible." Back at Legacy Suites, the hotel continued to thrive under Jasmine's leadership. It had become a hub for innovation and community engagement, hosting events that brought people together to celebrate diversity and promote understanding. One such event was an annual gala called Voices of Change, which honored individuals and organizations making strides toward equity and inclusion. The gala attracted celebrities, activists, and business leaders, further solidifying Legacy Suites' reputation as a force for good in the world. Despite her many achievements, Jasmine remained humble and grounded. She never forgot the lessons she learned during those early days of struggle, nor did she take for granted the support of her team and loved ones. At staff meetings, she often reminded employees that their work mattered, not just because it contributed to the success of the company, but because it helped shape a better, fairer world. "Every interaction you have with a guest is an opportunity to make them feel valued," she would say. "And every time you stand up against bias, you're helping to create a culture of respect and dignity." As the years went by, Jasmine's legacy grew. Legacy Suites expanded to include locations in major cities worldwide, each one embodying the same principles of inclusivity and excellence. Scholars began studying Carter Hospitality as a case study in effective leadership and social responsibility. Business schools incorporated Jasmine's strategies into their curricula, teaching students how to balance profitability with purpose. Meanwhile, Jasmine herself became a mentor to aspiring entrepreneurs, particularly women and minorities, offering guidance and encouragement as they navigated their own paths. Looking back on her journey, Jasmine felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had faced countless obstacles, endured moments of doubt, and weathered storms that might have broken someone else. Yet through it all, she had remained steadfast in her mission to create a better world. Legacy Suites was proof that change was possible, that even in the face of adversity, a single person could spark a movement capable of transforming lives. On a quiet evening, Jasmine found herself standing once again in the lobby of Legacy Suites. The space was alive with energy, filled with laughter, conversation, and the hum of activity. Employees greeted guests warmly, their smiles genuine and inviting. Families checked in for vacations, couples celebrated anniversaries, and professionals gathered for meetings. It was everything Jasmine had envisioned, and more. She thought about the night she had been denied entry to her own hotel, the anger and humiliation she had felt. At the time, it had seemed like an insurmountable blow. But now, looking around, at the vibrant community she had helped build, she realized it had been a turning point, a catalyst for growth and transformation. That night had taught her something invaluable. True strength lies not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them with grace and resolve. With a smile, Jasmine walked outside and gazed up at the towering structure of Legacy Suites. Its lights glimmered, against the night sky, a symbol of hope and possibility. She knew there would always be more work to do, more barriers to break, and more dreams to chase. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. This was her legacy, not just a hotel, but a testament to the power of perseverance, compassion, and courage. And as she stood there, bathed in the glow of her creation, Jasmine Carter knew one thing for certain: the best was yet to come.